We're not opposed to any audience in particular, but it is more to get the word out about what we do. We want to provide some content and some tips when people are searching, whether it be us or somewhere else. We just want to be a great resource for people that are in that arena.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
A lot of people will be hearing this at any time of the year, but for a couple of you who are true fans and listening over the holidays, I just wanted to let you know that I'm not really going to do a solo episode today, even though that would be the normal thing. I'm going to take a little break for just 3 weeks total. And so this is going to be one of the recordings of an interview that I had that I think will help you to become a better podcaster. So let's just dive in. What's up, podcaster? It's your host, Adam A. Adams. And today is a free recorded coaching call. What that means is for you, the listener, if you ever want to just ask Adam 2 or 3 questions where you're like, I want to start a podcast. I want to improve on my podcast. I've decided to offer a few of these slots of free recorded coaching calls. And it is going to be you asking me whatever questions that you want about podcasting, me pouring into you, and it'll be recorded and then shared. Today, I've got Christina Hartt, who is probably going to be starting a podcast. So she doesn't yet have a podcast. And so she said she's going to ask a couple of rookie questions, newbie beginner questions. And I think that's great because I definitely have a few people listening that are rookie, newbie, beginners. And I think they're going to get a lot out of this. So Christina, your bio is already in the show notes. So I'll go ahead and skip it. The listener can grab that anytime. And also whenever your podcast is launched, because today it's not launched. Today it's in idea phase. Whenever it's launched, your podcast will be in the show notes as well. So if that takes 1 month or 3 months or 3 years after we record this, that'll be fine. Just give me that link and the listeners already got it. They can scroll down and click. What questions do you have for me today?
Well, because our podcast is still in the very infancy phases, I guess there's a whole lot of podcasts out there, right? So what is a really good tip to give someone starting new that's going to captivate the audience and grab their attention for yours to stand out amongst all the others?
So it's a 2-part question. A good tip for a newbie to captivate the audience and to stand out, to captivate and to stand out. In this podcast, it's called The Podcast on Podcasting. My first 6 episodes are a beginner course. It's a course of how to go from nothing to having a top podcast. And if you want to have a top podcast, you want to be able to captivate people and you want to be able to stand out from the other people that are already doing it. And some of the lessons that you will learn in the first 6 episodes of The Podcast on Podcasting is how do you figure out exactly who you're trying to target? What is your unique way of doing things that others can't do? And I think these are like the first steps ever to, if you want a good tip for a newbie to captivate an audience and to really stand out, you've got to understand who is your avatar. Like if you know your avatar, awesome. We've got a resource. And I think you go to growyourshow.com/templates to get it, or maybe there is definitely a different ones. All right, I looked it up and I found out what it is. It's the avatar questionnaire, and you can find it at growyourshow.com/avatar. I'll make sure that the team also puts that in our show notes today. What that is a 4-page document that you fill out. We give you all the questions for the psychographics, the demographics, and the geographics of your perfect client, whoever that is. And I'll ask you some questions, Christina, to extract that person from you now. And then the 4th part, so we already talked about psychographics, demographics, and geographics. The 4th one is your niche. What's your unique proposition? What do you do differently than the other companies out there? Because for the most part, my listener and the people that I serve they are using their podcast as part of growing a business. They're using it as like top of funnel. They're using it to really build that awareness, stay in front of their listener, their avatar. And so I assume that's with you. But to answer question number one, what's a good tip for a newbie to A, captivate an audience, and B, have a niche, do something different than these other people? Tell me about your company.
So we are a senior living company. We do assisted living and memory care. What's different about our company, Sage Oak, is boutique style. So we do customized care instead of what we consider the big box places, some of the national senior living organizations, which are fantastic. And they're certainly a customer for those locations. We feel that we are for a different customer, someone that needs a little more individualized care and not as independent. Even in an assisted living setting, there's more independent people than others. So ours would be someone that's looking for that personalization more than just being able to live in a community setting.
So who do you want listening? Like, do you want we'll call it a 70-year-old that might be getting ready for senior living to listen? Do you want their son or daughter to be looking for you?
Yeah. So we call it the adult children. That's usually our target audience, simply because that's primarily who we have that comes in and is searching for placement for a mom, a dad, an aunt, an uncle. Sometimes it is a spouse, but we are seeing a younger demographic starting to move into our environments. So sometimes it is a spouse as well.
Okay, so you want the children or the spouse of the person who's getting ready for assisted living or memory care.
Yes.
To listen to the podcast. It's not passive investors that are going to partner with you. It's not brokers that are going to award you deals. It's really that you're looking to have that regular clientele coming in, that you're hoping that the podcast to be part of it.
Yeah. I mean, we're not opposed to any audience in particular, but it is more to get the word out about what we do, because we are a bit different than your typical assisted living or memory care company. We want to provide some content and some tips when people are searching, whether it be us or somewhere else. We just want to be a great resource for people that are in that arena.
Okay. So it sounds like you've got your company's niche perfectly down. And I'm going to add something to what we shared before. So the first big one is to know your avatar inside and out. You probably want to only speak to one avatar. If you're like, we're open to having passive investors, or we're open to this, we're open to that, you want to probably figure out what is the main driver, the main objective. I want to share that anybody listening who's wanting to really start and launch a podcast, in those first 6 episodes, another one of those episodes that you'll hear when you listen is that we basically need to have fuel in the tank. And I say this in thinking about, like, if I'm driving from, for example, California to New York, there's a lot of different routes that I can take. There's a lot of different places I could stop. I might be able to get gas here. I might be able to sleep there. I might camp. I might go to a 5-star hotel, a 4-star hotel. I might eat at this place, that place. I might go through Michigan. I might go through Ohio. I might go through Texas. I might go, who knows? There's so many different options. So the first thing is we figure out that roadmap. The second thing is we're not getting anywhere if we don't add any fuel to the tank. And the fuel to me is marketing dollars. It's paid ads. It's getting in front of people. And so anyone listening will gain from this. If you want to add fuel to your tank, you're probably going to have to do it in the beginning. You're probably going to have to do it along the way a few times. Depending on how far you're going, you've got to continue to put fuel in the tank. Now, if your goal was to go from Colorado to Utah, they're right next to each other. You're only going to need to fill up once or twice. But if you're looking to go from California all the way up to New York, those 2 states are very far apart from each other. You're probably going to have to fill up several times. You're probably going to have to really do that. Now, there's different types of fuel. There is diesel, there's gasoline, and there's natural gas. One of them, you might do more like of your own advertising, like where you're doing organic ads, where you're managing it, but it's going to take a lot of your time to fuel that tank. And another way would be that you hire a company like mine and we do all that stuff for you. So these are general pieces of information, but I have like a secondary piece of info specifically for Christina and her business model. And this is just on my own assumption. So what I'm nervous about is that it will be hard for us to find that avatar who wants to learn where they're going to take their parents through a podcast. It seems like a challenge. We would be up for the challenge. We would be up for trying it. The way that would look is we would put you in one of our bigger packages, one of the ones that comes with paid ads, where we can add that fuel to the fire throughout a whole year's period to make sure you get to that place. But our goal would be to go try to find those people on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Meetup. So for example, on Meetup, we could go to assisted living community Meetup groups. We could also look for Meetup groups of people that have parents in assisted living. So these are a couple of groups that we could look on meetup.com. On Facebook, we could look for the same. On LinkedIn, maybe we look for anyone who is 45 years old to 65 years old. And we private message them. My team would private message them and talk to them about, are your parents doing this? We would have to figure out the copy of that. We haven't done it before. We have a client that does assisted living, but their main thing is that they teach it. That's what their main income is, really honestly, coaching and mentoring in that space. So I'm getting around all this. Let me ask you one quick question, then I have hopefully some advice. Do you guys have a coaching program?
No, we don't have a coaching program.
Okay. And second question, your assisted living and memory care centers, are they all in Texas or are they all over the country?
They are primarily in Texas. We do have one campus in Lake Charles, Louisiana, but all others will be in Texas.
Okay. So I feel with you and your business model and your avatar that it's probably a better fit for you to do paid ads in Texas and Lake Charles, where if you had a coaching program and you could coach somebody in any place, like for example, I got a coaching program. This is my service at Grow Your Show. That's our company. We could serve somebody in Florida, Texas, Australia, Canada. We have one client in Canada right now. Texas, Colorado. We can serve people pretty much anywhere that's English speaking or Spanish speaking. And that makes it really easy for me with having my podcast as a part of my funnel to be able to serve my listener, my best avatar throughout the whole world, because there's many different countries that speak English. There's many different countries that speak Spanish. So it'd be really easy for us to serve almost half of the world just with those two languages. So very easy for me. With you, you have kind of like a real niche down person. I don't know the data on this. Like if people, for example, in California, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, if we are thinking, all right, we want mom to go to a place, so where would that be? And then we decide to fly her out to Texas, and then we have to fly out every time we want to meet her. I don't know if that's common. It doesn't seem like it's the most common. So she's shaking her head no, for those of you who can't see her. So honestly, I feel like geographically located ads are going to be your best bet. Like any magazines, any newspapers, any radio stations versus podcasts that are global, but any local radio stations. On top of that, like speaking at conferences out there, hosting events, hosting your own events that are basically serving your demographic to be able to learn 2 or 3 things. And then you give them your flyers, potentially Facebook ads, LinkedIn ads, Google ads, even maybe YouTube ads. I'm thinking if you had a YouTube ad that played for everybody that was basically in these 3 cities, let's call it Dallas and Fort Worth and wherever else you guys might be, Austin. If you have YouTube ads playing when somebody searches for somebody's specifically looking for assisted living. How do I find assisted living? What matters in assisted living? What's the best assisted living? If you could find people what they're searching for, and one resource for you to find that is AnswerThePublic.com. Answer the Public. I'll make sure my team puts that website, the URL, in our show notes today. This helps anybody, regardless if you've got a podcast, a YouTube channel, a business, you want to advertise locally or broadly. This will help all of those people. So my thinking is for you, a different approach might be a more effective approach. Like, I would love your business. I would love anybody's business as long as we could serve them, right? And actually, Lo, who works with you, is a good friend, somebody that I really look up to, respect, and care about. And I just feel like I might put you into a different place besides a podcast, because I think you'll spend the same amount of time and effort, but get a better result only because of your specific business model. That's not for our listener. Our listener might need a podcast, but this is where I'm leaning toward for you and Lo. Okay, Christina?
Okay.
All right. I gave you a bunch of different ideas and a website that you could look for. So I think some of those ideas for a local place like yours, more locally placed, would be YouTube ads, Google ads, Facebook ads, but geographically, you can pinpoint places with your Facebook ads. So they'll only go to a certain geographical region, but also newspapers, magazines, and radio shows where you get on and you share how to do this and what is the best way to do this, and call us if you need us. So you want to have some type of call to action that brings that person closer to you, where you probably will get their email address, their phone number, their name, some details about their parent or their spouse that might need some of this. And I would just have a resource for them where you could lead capture and then stay in front of them as well.
Okay.
Anyway, I think you had a couple of other questions, and I think we may as well try answering them. Is that okay?
Yeah, because I think we'll still be in the consideration for our podcast, but we may do these other things in addition too. So if we do move forward with the podcast option, what do you think is the best time allotment for a podcast? When do people stop paying attention? When do you lose them?
I love it. So the question is, when do you lose your audience? Like, should my podcast episode be 5 minutes long? Should it be 10? I keep hearing that it needs to be 25 to 35, but I know this guy who's real famous and he does 3.5 hour shows. So I don't know where to start. It's too hard. So what's the best time, the length of a podcast episode? There is no actual good data on what is a good length. There's a lot of human beings that don't use data that say that the average commute is 25 to 35 minutes. And so yours should be under 30 minutes. There's a lot of people saying that, but they're not using actual data. They're using a piece of data that says that that's how far people drive. But a lot of people actually listen to part of it on their drive, and then they finish it when they're done driving. A lot of people listen to 2 or 3 on a drive. So that piece of advice that's coming from them is really honestly coming from nowhere. And the best considerations for the length of your episodes, it comes from here. A, who's your avatar? What does your avatar want? Where is your avatar going to be? And so for some avatars, yes, it does need to be 25 minutes. For some, it does need to be 5 minutes. For some, it does need to be 2.5 hours, 3.5 hours. That's just because who are you serving and what do they want? So we think that way first. If you're thinking the person that I want listening is, let's call them 55 years old. This is them putting their parent that's 65, 70, 75 years old into the home for the first time. I guess I should have said 70, 75.
Yeah, they're probably not 65 if they're 55.
Yeah. 10 years. Although I think that's happened once.
It may be. Well, I'm sure
in
it has,
Guinness Book of World Records, I think it's happened once. Like a 7-year-old or something got pregnant. Yeah, that's not what we want to talk about on this show.
No.
All right.
Different
So
show.
Anyway, what's the best length of an episode? It matters who are you serving. So think about them. Think about that daughter and son of the person that's getting ready for memory care, and think about how old they are. What do they do for work? What is your main avatar like? Do they own a business? Are they a CEO? Are they a stay-at-home parent? What is their role? What do they do? How do they consume content? What are they looking for? And think about them and nail it down to one person. So, for example, my avatar could be any of these people, is what some of my clients have said. Then I tell them, go through the avatar questionnaire and pick one person, your best person. Like, pick the person that you love working with the most, that helps you make the most amount of money, that you enjoy your job, that you know that you're serving them at a high level. Pick them. And then once you do, then we go through and we find out how long do they want to listen to a podcast episode. And then we want to answer it for them. My general advice, if I can go back, so this was more specific to you, Christina, I was like, find out who that person is, name them, not, oh, Emily and Carl and Samantha are my avatars. No, it's just pick one. Emily. Emily's my avatar. She's my perfect avatar. I love working with Emily and her mom. And now, how long does she want to listen to a podcast? But I want to go and say, with my show and with the shows that we serve, we have like 70 clients in different spaces where they're just podcasting to kind of grow their business. And for them, I always tell them when talking about this and the length of their podcast episodes is, you want it to be entertaining. You want it to be valuable. You want it to be educational. If it can be entertaining, valuable, and educational, then it won't matter the length, really. So yes, we do need to think about our exact avatar, because that's a big part of it. But secondly, my avatar, some of my episodes are 10 minutes long. Some of them are 20 minutes long. Some of them are an hour and 10 minutes long. Most of them are like 45 minutes. And my thinking, my thought process as I'm making an episode is, I don't want to lengthen it and fill space with pointless crap.
Yeah.
Just because I heard that it was supposed to be longer than 10 minutes.
I don't need filler.
Yeah. And I don't want to cut out really good content and being able to dive deep and give actionable takeaways to my listener because I thought that it needed to be under a certain amount of time.
That makes sense.
I just want to make sure that the whole episode is valuable. The episode is entertaining. It's interesting. It's memorable. And it gives the right amount of value, the right amount of content. So I guess here's the way I'll word this. Don't get hung up on the length. Just add value to your listener.
Okay, that makes sense. And one of my secondary questions, what you already kind of answered, was if you have your avatar and you find out who that person is and what their average length of listen may be, would it also be smart to have a few variations? That way, maybe Emily has time today and she's got a 45-minute commute, so she listens to one of your longer shows. But tomorrow, Emily's kind of pressed for time. She's in and out of the car. So maybe you have a 5 to 10 minute segment on something that doesn't need a lot of time to give good content, and they're able to just take little nuggets here and there. So you have some options for your listener.
Yeah. Well, so yes and no is going to be my response. Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, meaning you can easily have some 5-minute episodes that are valuable. You can easily have some 1-hour episodes. The reason that you do it isn't so that Emily can listen for an hour when she wants or 5 minutes when she wants, because podcasts are a little bit different. The way that the listener consumes the content on a podcast versus YouTube channel is on YouTube, you see all of the videos and then you can pick which ones, you can highlight the ones, and you're probably not going to watch one that you aren't super interested in. On podcasts, it's slightly different because people usually listen in order. So there's 2 settings on the podcast playing platforms. One of them is to structure the episodes from oldest to newest, and the other one is from most new to old. So either way, they're going to go either episode 100, then 99, then 98, then 97, or they're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're going to go in order one direction or another. Now, if they find one that they're not liking, they will just skip until it gets to the next episode. But most listeners on podcast aren't picking and choosing an episode. They just kind of let it happen and they'll just skip it if it's not for them. And if enough of them aren't for them, then they'll go to another show. But if one or two in several, maybe 20% of them don't really relate to them, then they'll just fast forward on those and go to the next one. So I would say, going back to the yes part of that answer, should you do some short, some long? Sure, because that's how content naturally, organically is some is short, some is long. Additionally, the short ones are beneficial because you might be able to get them to listen to multiple at a time. And so they're getting value, they're listening to this episode, and then they're going to listen to this next episode, and then they're going to listen to the next one. And because all of them are only 5 minutes long, for example, they could probably listen to 5 or 6 in a row in that same car ride. And that's beneficial to you because it's triggering algorithms that allow your podcast to get shown in front of more people. And the algorithm that's getting triggered is that they're listening all the way through on the episodes, and they're listening to multiple episodes at a time. So they're basically binge listening to your podcast, which makes the podcast playing platform say, wow, this podcast there's something special about it. It's because they're listening to multiple. So you should do both, but not specifically because you want Emily, your avatar, to pick and choose, because she's probably not going to on podcasts the way that she would if it was YouTube.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
If it was YouTube, I'm not a YouTube expert by all means. I'm just regurgitating some information that I've heard a few times. On YouTube, I've noticed that I like the 5-minute episodes better. And sometimes I won't listen to a 12-minute episode or watch a 12-minute YouTube video. I won't because I want to go to bed and I want the information, but I found one that was 3 minutes and it seems like it tells me the same thing. So for me, that's what I do on YouTube. I go to the shortest one. And randomly enough, I might listen to watch these videos on YouTube. I won't have enough time for a 15, 20-minute video, but I'll watch 7, 5, and 6-minute videos, which takes longer. So I'm like, oh, not a 21. I'll do a couple of 5 minutes, and then it ends up being more. So I get engrossed on the short ones personally. And YouTube has some algorithms that if you're YouTube, now this could change and it may have already changed, but I think that the number was 12 minutes. I think that the number was 12 minutes. It doesn't mean it literally was. I'm just sharing what I think I remember. The YouTube channels, the YouTube algorithms favor the videos that are 12 minutes and longer. They would prefer them because it helps keep the people on the platform longer than the 3 and 5 minute videos. So I want to watch the 3 and 5 minutes. And many other people agree with me that that's what they want to do. And YouTube wants it to be at least 12 minutes. And so if that's still the case, if you are doing YouTube versus podcast, it might be really helpful for you to make it as short as possible, but at least the 12 minutes or whatever YouTube seems to be favoring when you are recording those episodes. Yeah. Do you have one more question for me?
Yeah, I have one more, and it'll go back to our rookie theme. So if you had one piece of advice on what rookie mistake to steer clear of, what would it be? Ready,
fire, aim. Ready, fire, aim is absolutely the one. Let's go back to that car analogy, driving from California to New York City.
Okay.
You want to do this drive. You've planned out the drive everywhere that you're going to go. You're even spending money for the fuel. These things are all good. This goes back to a book that I read when I didn't read the whole thing, but I read part of it. Back then, it was called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think it was Stephen Covey. And one of the habits is to begin with the end in mind. Basically have a vision of what you want it to look like. A lot of podcasters are told, ready, fire, aim. They're told, don't overthink it, just start. They're told, done is better than perfect. And because we hear these phrases so often, most of us in the entrepreneurship space do hear this so often. Done is better than perfect, just start, don't overthink it. You can change it later. Ready, fire, aim mentality. What we do because of believing that is we don't give 2 shits about our podcast or the content of our podcast. We just push it out as fast as possible. We think we want to have it launched in 2 days. There's some horrible companies out there, literally horrible companies out there that say that they can launch your podcast in a weekend. Come to my seminar, and you're going to come here on Saturday, and on Sunday, your podcast is going to be up and running. Or maybe it's a 3-day conference. And the problem is you're not doing enough preparation. You're having a product, but it's a shitty product. And I know, like for you, for example, Christina, with Sage Oak, you don't believe in shitty products.
Correct.
You believe in like quality. And I think the same. Like if somebody wants to go to a 3-day seminar, pay $2,000 and walk away with a crappy podcast, that's actually a bad thing for them. Yes, they've got a podcast. So look on the bright side. I have a podcast. But really, you probably only have a diary. You've only got a little journal. It's your own personal thing that the only person who listens to it is you.
Yeah.
If we do it right, if we go ready, aim, fire, if we spend some time, this is the biggest rookie mistake. People think done is better than perfect. They think I just have to have a podcast. But the podcast doesn't have a good microphone. It doesn't have good sound. It wasn't thoughtful or intentional on who we're going to interview. It wasn't thoughtful or intentional on the type of content that we have. It wasn't thoughtful or intentional on who we serve, Emily. And it was like, oh, I can serve anybody who makes at least $100,000 a year. No, that's not an avatar. There's people that make 100 and different people that make 150, even more different people that make 250, and even more different people that make 400 a year. And then there's some that make $1 million a month. And like, we need to figure out which one we're targeting, not all of them. If you're speaking to everyone, you're really talking to nobody. So the ready, fire, aim mentality is absolutely the worst. And here's the biggest drawback of it. The first 8 weeks of your launch have been proven many times over that that's where you build the most amount of traction. And so people go in and they might, part of ready, fire, aim is I'm going to record an episode and then I'm going to publish an episode. And then I'm going to go and record another episode and then I'm going to publish that. And then I'm going to go record and then publish. And what happens is they're always behind the 8 ball. They're always stressed out. They don't have a bank account of episodes like we need a bank account, a savings account for our money that makes sure that we're going to be fine. We want them to be fine when they're launching a podcast. So ready, fire, aim comes into, you need to do more marketing in the beginning so you can trigger some algorithms so that you can actually not have a journal or a diary. Now you've got a podcast that's listened to around the world. And you want to make sure you're having a good microphone, and you want to make sure you're serving your person, like asking the right questions. A lot of apartment syndicators come and launch podcasts. And I've served a lot of them, dozens of them so far in my 70 clients. Many of them are syndicating. And so they're trying to raise equity, and they will be told, I need to have a podcast. And so they go and have a podcast and they interview operators besides themselves. And they're like, how did you find that deal? And they're like, how did you talk to the broker? And they're like, what did you do for the CapEx? And the problem is that the passive investor, they don't care about that stuff. They don't care how did you find a deal. They don't care how to talk to a broker, and they don't care how to raise money. They want to know how to leverage other people's time, not leverage other people's money. And so they think that they're starting a real estate podcast so that they can attract capital, but really they're just attracting people that want to learn how to do the thing, and nobody who has the money to invest with them, because all of the people that want to leverage OPT, other people's time, are listening to a better podcast, a podcast more well suited for them. So ready, fire, aim is absolutely the worst thing. You want to be conscious and thoughtful and intentional at every step in the way. That's why I mentioned growyourshow.com/avatar, because that's one way of getting intentional to make sure you're serving the right person. So Christina, if you're going to start your podcast, for question number 3, if you're going to start your podcast and you're wondering what's the biggest mistake, I think the biggest mistake is jumping in too quickly and not planning, thinking you need to have it launched in 2 days instead of maybe even 2 months. 2 months is fine if you want a really good product that's going to be listened to by people besides you and your mom.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. I think all of that's been really great advice, really helpful for us moving forward.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your 3 big questions. And if you do end up launching this, let me know and I would love to serve you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a good day, Christina. If
You
you're
too.
listening to this podcast episode, there is more content coming. Don't go away. I'll see you on the next episode. You're not alone if you're ready to either get your very first affordable microphone or if you're ready to upgrade your equipment to some legit podcasting studio equipment. Because on all of the forums over the last few months, I'm seeing this all the time. Even my own personal clients that work with my team, they're ready to get that next microphone. They're asking us for it. Additionally, when I'm on discovery calls with potential clients, they're always asking for this stuff. Hey, what mic do you recommend? Hey, what lighting do you recommend? What webcam should I be using? So many questions. And so what we did, my whole team has put together a PDF so that if you're one of those people who is looking to either get your very first affordable microphone, or if you're ready to upgrade your equipment to more professional podcast studio equipment, whether it's soundproofing or whatever, we've got you covered by going to growyourshow.com/PDF. And you can download the PDF for free, or right there on the webpage is everything that you would have and you don't need to download the PDF. Either way, just go to growyourshow.com/PDF, which will put you to the podcasting equipment that me and my team have personally vetted. I'll see you on the next episode.